Discovery archaeologist. Get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Amy Tsai. She's calling in from Toronto. Welcome to the show again. It's so fun to have you back.
Well, thank you so much, Beverly. It's always a pleasure. You're just so much fun. I just want to hang out with you every single day.
Well, you know what? Then let's just hang, right? I am going to get up to Toronto, and you and I are going to rock that town there and going to know what hit it, right?
Perfect. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I've been to the west side of Canada, but I haven't been to the east side. So I'm really interested in getting up in that neck of the woods and seeing what it's all about up there. I love adventure. I love going to new areas and having this show. I have met so many wonderful women, and a few men. Not too many men get on the show, but from all over the world. And it's like, wow. When that door opens and says, hey, it's a free-for-all again. I am traveling the world. I've got so many people to go visit. It's exciting, right?
It is, yeah. It is. It's pretty fun. I'm enjoying it too, especially since this year.
Yeah.
How things have changed, and we won't, how things have changed. It's really expanded everybody's world, right?
It really has. It's turned people's worlds upside down, inside out, and it's like, where do we go from here? I look at this year as being the year of awakening, and I talked about awakening. It's like, I think really that this is that total awakening. And that awakening is all about what? Finding you. It's like finding Nemo. It's time to find you. Where's your Nemo, right?
I love Nemo.
I know, so do I. And we talk about animations, right? So if Nemo can find himself, why can't we? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And this year has definitely gave us an opportunity to say, wow, why am I? Who am I? Where am I going? And, as nothing predictable, it's like, where do I go from here? And a lot of people struggle with that. So, Amy, share with the audience, what your opinion and viewpoint is on that, discovering that self and looking inside. How does that look for you, and how does that look for your clients?
Yeah, I think, well, if you don't mind, if you can just talk about what I do, maybe just give people some context here. So I run a business called Fit and Fierce Over 40, and what I help do is to help women stop the struggle with their body. So it's particularly women over 40 because there's, things change as we get older. And I just turned 51 this year, and I know what I went through since I was 40, what it was like trying to navigate through the hormones and what have you. So that's why I pivoted from, I was originally a long-time fitness trainer here in Toronto. And over the years, I realized that, women were accomplishing their fitness goals, like losing weight, gaining strength,
right,
and so on, but they were still unhappy with their bodies. So, I realized that, being happy in your body and weight loss are two separate issues. And that's how I came about with Fit and Fierce Over 40. And back to your question, yeah, it's really important to, it really boils down to awareness, right? And I know that this year has been a real challenging year for a lot of people, right, and for a lot of women, because we carry a lot of weight on our shoulders, raising children, taking care of the household, having a career, and so on and so on. And what tends to happen is that we forget about ourselves. We put ourselves at the bottom of the list. And what happened with this year being so different with what's going on in the world is that it was a little bit of a free-for-all at the beginning. Everybody was so happy that they were at home. It was like this unwritten law or rule. And if you're on social media, 2:00 drink on a Monday afternoon, baking bread and doing a bit of it, like they were just doing whatever they felt like, because it's like, yeah, I don't have to go to work. And then all of a sudden the pounds started coming on, and the stress started coming on, and so on and so on. And it didn't solve their problems, right? And now with the second lockdown that's happening now, they're like, okay, you know what? We can't be doing what we were doing the first lockdown. And now people are looking to get out of the house a little bit more. So for some people, they're still going to work, maybe one day a week or on a rotation. And what I find interesting are people are excited to go to the office now.
I know, isn't it crazy? We want that freedom, like, oh, yeah, I get to stay home. It's like a little mini vacation that wasn't ending. And at the same time, you know, it created more stress because the paycheck wasn't there, right?
And that's right. And what, you know, I was telling them right from the beginning, I said, this is a perfect time to work on yourself because you have less social pressures. You don't have to leave the house as often. It's a real good time to reflect and know who you are and what it is that you want for yourself, right? Because the whole world is changing with this thing that's going on. And it's in that awareness that's gonna help you understand who you are and what it is that you want that's going to make you happy ultimately. So it's the awareness piece that we're all lacking, I find, right? Because we're always searching for things outside of us.
Exactly.
Right?
That is
searching.
Yeah, that's so true. We're so busy looking out here to see what's going to make the difference in here when we need to look in here, make the changes here, and then everything out here just automatically changes. It's amazing how that works. And again, you know, it's not really anybody's fault, shall we say, because again, that's one of the things that you probably see with your clients as well, is that fault finding. You know, we want to hold ourselves responsible, blame ourselves for this, or, you know, so if we look inside, you know, and start making our own choices, what happens, right? Well, if something goes wrong, then it's my fault. So if I look out here and I do what others are saying to do, if it goes wrong, I can say that was your fault, right?
And the irony of that, Beverly, is that, you know, they think that it's somebody else's fault if they look outside, but regardless whether it's inside or outside, it's actually still your own responsibility.
That's right. It's that you made the choice, right?
You made the choice because what goes on outside of you is really the consequences of what's going on in here, right? You know what I mean? It's like what happens today is a reflection of my own thought patterns, you know, in the past, right? So it's a reflection of what's going on the inside. And that's what people need to understand is no matter what happens, it's all here. We have full control. Even though you don't like the outcome, it's here, right?
So change it, right? Don't do it again. You know, I like to share this when people, you know, talk to me and they ask me about, you know, I'm always doing something different, right? And I'm a daredevil. I've always been a daredevil. I like risk taking. You know, that's part of my personality, you know, and I'll try anything once. If I like it, I'll do it again and again. Yeah. But if I don't, I can say, well, hey, I did it, but you know what? Not really my cup of tea, so I think I'll try something else, you know? But again, if you...
But at least you tried it. You're being open, right?
Right.
Being open.
Right. Because if you concern yourself and you build up that fear, you know, it's like, why would I want to do that? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, because you're closing yourself off, right?
Those limits.
Expanding yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're a perfect example, Beverly, because you know what? Like, you have an energy of a 20-year-old.
That's good.
I know. I love it. That's what attracted me, you know, to you. It's like, oh my goodness, I need to spend more time with Beverly because her energy is just so contagious, right? And it makes you open your eyes a little bit. Go, you know what? Yeah, that's how we should be. That's how we landed on Earth. That's how we became who we are.
Right.
When we were all born, we're all happy.
Exactly.
When you look at babies, right? When we're babies, whether it's me or you, or you know, whether you have kids or not, you know, you've seen little children that they're all happy. And somewhere along the way, we start losing our path, right? And Beverly, you haven't lost your path. You're still like this vibrant energy that you have, you know, and I admire you for that.
Well, thank you. You know, I've worked hard at it. There was a time slot, you know, when I started my journey back in 1974. You know, I had lost my identity. It was 4 years that I really didn't know who I was, and it was those first 4 years of my marriage, which that's another long story. But Most people have heard it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I recognized my loss of identity, right? And it's like, where do I go from here? I had 3 kids, all under the age of 5. Bing, 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 right? And it's like, wait a minute. You know, my mom had 11 of us, and I'm not going there. You know? Yeah. And so I was second oldest. I was 21, you know, when I had my first child. But at the same time, it was like, who am I? I was being, you know, recognized by association. And I think there's a lot of the audience out there that really don't know who they truly are, because they're referred to as, oh yeah, you're married to so-and-so, or you're so-and-so's mother, or you're the person that works over here, or you do this, or you do that, you live down the block, you know, that type of thing. But really, who are you as a person, and finding that identity. So when we talk about that inner working, looking at that inside of who you are, what are your assets? Right? What are your assets? What makes you tick? If you're not sure, and again, these things that we're taught, you know, don't brag. Well, you know, if you don't ring your own bell, and if you don't brag, you don't pat yourself on the back, nobody else is going to, right? You deserve your bragging rights. You earned them, you know, and don't be afraid to talk about them. And that's kind of what this show is all about. Opening that to be that best you that you can be, because we're all a snowflake. And we all have that sparkle. It's just kind of it's just kind of got smashed down a few times, you know. It's like, open up, you know, connect with the universe. The universe is an overabundance of energy. That's where it comes from. Don't drain your own energy. Don't let people come into your life and suck you dry of your energy. You know, pay attention. You are in charge of your energy. You know, open up. Let the universe give it to you, because there's a lot of it. And I'm telling you, I take my share and then some, you know, because it never runs dry. Right?
It never runs dry. There's enough for everybody. There's an abundance, you know. There's always an abundance. And it's just your own mindset that's stopping you from that belief of overabundance, right, that's out there. And, you know, I met a woman a couple nights ago, where I've been communicating with her over email and text messages, and I could feel her energy. She's a sweet, gentle, kind, just like, I just want to love her to death. And then when I've met her in person before over Zoom, and the person that I saw was not, it's not that she wasn't who she was when we wrote it, but something along the way, like lots of stresses in her life, that's caused her energy to be different from the physical, but her energy on the inside was there's this beautiful energy about her. So there's a little bit of a mismatch, right? I could feel it. I could see it. And but I know her true self. I could feel it. And it's just so beautiful. And that's what we all have within us.
Right.
We just have to allow ourselves to grow and to be, without having all these, trying to live up to unrealistic expectations, or unrealistic, or trying to be something that we're not, or being defined by the neighborhood that you live in, or how much money you make, or the career that you have. Because those things are just means to an end. But who we really are is who, you know, how we came, like when we were first born, like that energy, that happiness, that joy is really who we are, right?
That is so true, you know, true. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we get busy thinking we have to be something that we're not to be accepted by the outside world, right? And there's so much of you that's just ready to explode, you know. And it's not about being something that you're not because you want to be accepted. There's billions of people in the world, and I will guarantee, and you can put this in stone, I will guarantee there's going to be lots of people out there that are going to love you for who you are. More people are going to love you for being that true you than trying to be something you're not. And if those aren't, you know, those people that you're trying to impress, what are they doing? The same thing. They're trying to impress, and it's like, really? You know, so
no, thank you.
Yeah, so just be you. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It matters what you think of you.
Exactly.
And then
I
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I remember I was probably about 36 or 37. My girlfriend was turning 40, and you know, we're all at her birthday party, and she says to all of us, she goes, "You know what? I'm 40 and no one's going to talk me into anything that I don't want to do. And I was like, damn, I like that. So when I turned 40, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to decide for myself. No one's going to talk me into anything that doesn't agree with me. And now that I'm 50, I'm like, ugh, like I have to live with myself, right? I have to feel good about my
Exactly.
and I'm not sucking my energy dry, because women tend to have a tendency to do that, and it's not our fault. It's built into our DNA. We're carrying DNA from like generations and generations and generations of women. And when you think back historically, you don't have to be a historian to know, but we've all watched period pieces on TV and on Netflix that, women of like 14th, 15th, whatever century it was historically, is we were all caregivers. We just gave and gave and gave and gave and gave.
Right.
And it's only now that we're starting to evolve and not to give so much of our energy away, but to make ourselves important, that we are important as everybody else is, our children, our family, our friends, our coworkers, and right? So it's not our fault. However, it is our responsibility.
Yes. Right? Yeah, the responsibility to make that paradigm shift. It's not about making changes. It's about making a transformation.
Yes.
Right?
Love it.
Yeah. Because when you transform, there's no going back. If you just make changes, you can always slide back, and that's not comfortable. So make those transformations, because that's what's going to shift the world. The more of us that do that, and what I really love seeing over the last few years is more women are beginning to support one another and really have a strength and a connection and a bond, that's happening. And that is so needed. And like you'd mentioned, the different civilizations, and the time periods that have come through. And we work at synergism, right? We know what that is, right? So when there's an overabundance of a certain activity that's taking place, everyone is affected by it through that ripple effect, because it's all vibration and we're all connected. We're all one somewhere down the line. And so when there's a thought pattern out there or an action that is continuous, it becomes an automatic reflex. And so making these paradigm shifts are what's going to make a difference in the world, by that collaboration, by that unity, where it's all about coming into that harmony. Where's your pendulum swinging? You have a negative side of energy and you have a positive side of energy. You need both.
You need both.
Right? And so where are you off kilter? Where's your short? Right? Yeah. So bring it back into that harmony and into that center point. And that's knowing and being you, not somebody else, you.
Yeah.
Right?
And how do you know that you're off kilter, right, Beverly? So things like, you're constantly tired, you're constantly stressed. Maybe not constantly, but you have issues with fatigue,
right,
stress, and probably happiness. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're lacking in any of those areas, then you're slightly off kilter, right? So a story that I want to say is I have a woman in my community who came to me just not long ago, only a couple of weeks. She joined our group, and she's like, Amy, I'm just so exhausted. I just don't have time. And she's about 54. And so we decided to go through her schedule, write down what she does every day of the week, and then any extra stuff that's, down at the bottom that's not scheduled in this week, but maybe in the other weeks. And she realized that she has more time than she thought. So she was feeling drained. She's just exhausted. So, well, okay, so it's not, you're not too busy. You've got lots of time to yourself. So it was how she was handling things. She wanted everything to be perfect. And that's unrealistic. Like, she has a young daughter, and she wanted to make her daughter's life perfect. And I said to her, I said it's not realistic, because for one, it depends on the child, and I don't know your child. However, there's two things here. One, you're not showing her what the real world is. Not that you just show her everything, but she needs to be able to manage herself in the world, like see what the real world really is all about.
Right.
right? And the other thing too is the messaging, the subconscious messaging. What are you saying to your child? You know, because she's devoted her whole life to this little kid. And what you're doing is this little kid, when she grows up, she's going to devote her whole life to her children and to everybody else and everything else. So there's all kinds of things at play here when you're trying to be this person that's kind of, operating at 100%. It's causing a lot of stress and anxiety and fatigue. And I think for her, it's I could tell that her energy, her fatigue is from it's adrenal fatigue.
Right.
She's created. It's adrenal fatigue.
Right. And that happens so often because, we as parents, and especially mothers, because it's that care, that caretaking, that nurturing, that nourishing, that is kind of instinctively more in a woman versus a man because of DNA, right? That's just the way it is. And we always want more, we always want better for our children than we had for ourselves, and so are we living vicarious, through our children, giving them what we wanted. And I was guilty of that. Oh my gosh, I was so guilty of that, that I always wanted as a kid. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure my kids get this, right? And one Christmas I bought them all bicycles because I always wanted a new bike, right? They could care less whether they had a bicycle, and I'm like, what the heck?
Oh, isn't that interesting, eh? Because you wanted a bike, so you bought them all, and they were like, yeah. So?
Okay, so what? Okay, what else is in these packages? Yeah, it was like, and that was an aha moment. So how many times do we do that? Live vicarious, right? And so again, that's part of that looking inside. When we are happy inside, like you said, right? Yeah. That's what we're going to be an expression of. But you can't give more out of yourself. You really can't give more to that child than what you give to yourself. So it all begins inside. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And then all that subconscious messaging that we're completely unaware.
This is dangerous up here, right? This 6 inches is the most dangerous thing you could ever have. It is a dynamite lit waiting to get to the centered blow up, and it gets there from time to time, and sometimes it gets there more often than not. So really pay attention to what this 6 inches is doing and saying, right? And know those thoughts. Know those thoughts. What do they say? You have like 60,000 thoughts a day, and like half of them, 50% of those 60 thoughts are a lie, and then the other 50%, like,
you may not even be aware of.
45% of it is a repeat, and it's not even your idea. So you got 5% that you need to pay attention that's really yours. Are you ever going to find that needle in the haystack? Probably not so much, right? So it's start opening up and say, how do I perceive myself again, right? It's looking at, who am I? Why am I? What am I? Where do I want to go? Where is your creativity? Watch your child. Help your child stay in that creativity. We've seen it happen so intently once they start school, how they begin to lose that creativity. It's time to bring creativity back to the world, back to the forefront. And that's part of the resourcefulness and figuring out what to do, and not just get in these, movement things. Well, this is what you got to do. You get up, you make this whole routine thing, right? And do what everybody else says. Well, it says I have to go to work, says I have to make money, says I have to. Wait a minute, what do you say you have to? Start looking at you, right? Yeah. And really start being happy within your own skin. And you become that reflection. And then others are going to say, wow, what do you got that I ain't got? How did you get there, right? And that's shows like this to share. How did we get from that abyss, shall we say, because we've all been in an abyss, to ecstasy without drugs? Yes. Without drugs, right? So where is that support? It's that self-support, right?
Right. And Beverly, what would you say what the biggest tool is that people can do to implement that awareness? Like what like in terms of like how do you open yourself up to discover yourself? Like where would you begin?
I would say, just tell yourself, from this day forth, right now in this moment, I am going to be 100% honest with me. Lie to the world. Lie to the world, doesn't matter. Because they're all lying to the world too. So, but stop lying to yourself. You know, start really taking a deep look at what is the story I've been telling myself so that I could just get
change
by.
The story.
Yeah. And you have that
yeah.
power. You have that power.
Yeah.
So when you start to be honest with yourself, now you can begin to recognize when Houston has a problem.
I love that.
Right? Houston, what's your issue today? Okay, well, you know, if you don't want that issue to continue for your tomorrow, you need to make the shift today. So what can you do to make that better? Little by little by little. So recognizing, I do this rah-rah system, right? So recognize that Houston has an issue. And then acknowledge it, that Houston has made it your truth. It's really a lie, but it's made it its truth. And it is sealed in that subconscious, right?
Yeah.
So when you tell your subconscious, hey, you're right, that's truth, it will let go of it. Otherwise, if you deny it and you fight that subconscious, it won't let go. So just say, yep, you're right. Surrender.
Yes, subconscious is very powerful.
Yep, surrender to the truth. Yeah.
Yes, and when I read a stat was when we turn about 35, that 95% of our day is ruled and functioned or is ruled by our habits, meaning everything that we do is habitual. 95%. That's huge. So you said 5% and you were right.
Yeah.
That's huge, right? So we're the way you get up, the way you brush your teeth, the way you comb your hair, the way you shower, the way you cook your food, like everything. We're completely on autopilot. And I always say that the body, which is how our habits work our way through, like in terms of our daily functions,
right,
is that the servant has become the master. Our habits, our subconscious has become the master versus our conscious is now become the servant, right?
Exactly. That was well said.
I was like, damn. I was like, that's good. I read that somewhere. I was like, that's so true.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong. And I think one is deciding, making that decision, right? Committing, being committed to yourself, or just being interested in self-improvement, because there's a big difference.
Yes,
right?
There is a huge difference. Yeah.
Huge difference. When you're interested, you do it when it's convenient. When you're committed, when you're committed, you accept no excuses. Those are huge differences.
They are.
And when I talk to women and I ask that question, they're like, oh, maybe I've only been interested. I'm like, yeah, there you go, right? So it's these types of questions. And I always like to talk, when I talk to my ladies, I always reference children, because they are like young toddlers are a perfect example of how we should be throughout your entire life. So as you know, you've had kids, and they would be asking, Mommy, why is it this? And then you give them an answer, but why? And then you give them another answer, but why? You give them another answer, but why? And you're like, you're dying. But that's what we need.
We need to ask that. We need to start asking that why more often, right?
We need to start asking that why more often. So making that decision, understanding that commitment or interest, right?
Exactly.
And then 3, what I've noticed, I've always dabbled in meditation, like for the last 15, 20 years. I've never been really all that consistent with it. And just recently I started meditating some more. And that's a really good way of developing awareness.
Yes.
Right? And when you meditate, the other thing that it does is your subconscious mind relaxes.
Right.
And you're able to go inside and go within and figure out what it is, like who you are, what you feel in your body.
Right.
Because that's the other thing, is we become so disconnected to our body because we're always searching for things outside of us, right? So we become very disconnected. And so you develop that awareness, like emotionally, spiritually, physically, in all those areas. Because, when we talk about health, we typically only focus on physical health. What do I need to eat? How much exercise do I need to do? I'm not doing enough, right? But we're not working on the emotional health, and we're not so much working on the spiritual health. And all those things are part of health, or physical, emotional, and spiritual, right?
right? And don't forget that mental health, because that mental and emotional health really coincide, very impactfully. And so what you said was so real, to look at it from those perspectives, right? And when you are in that meditative state, your focus then starts to move into one direction. I worked with a client last night, and she said to me, she says, I've been wanting to move into more meditation, but she said, I don't know how, I'm having a struggle with it. And I said, well, how many times have you just gone off and daydreaming? You just take off, and you're like, all of a sudden an hour goes by and you're off in this daydreaming. She goes, I do it all the time. I said, well, you're meditating. She goes, really? I said, yeah. I mean, so again, that concept. Meditation's not om, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's been that belief, right?
It can be in any form.
Yeah. And I said, how many times have you sat down in prayer? I do it all the time. You're meditating, right? So open eye meditation is really powerful. A lot of people think you got to close it and get quiet and all this stuff. No. Go for a walk in nature and just start paying attention to your senses. What's the smell? What's the sound? Feel the wind, all of these things. Get all your senses heightened. Now you're moving into that altered state, where you can just focus on what you want. You shut down the brain chatter when you allow your senses to come alive, and just, where do you want to be? So meditation is not as difficult as people like to make it, right?
Yeah. And you have to accept, we like to say, okay, that was a bad meditation, or that was good. It's like, you know what, just forget about it, right? Just whatever happens, happens. And if you wander off, you wander off. And if you can focus, and, be more relaxed with it, right? It's supposed to be like, it has to be like, living in these sets of rules. Put yourself in a box even while you're meditating. It's like, let yourself drop those walls and, come out of the box and just be, and not to be so controlling, I guess you could say, right?
And that's a good word. That's a good word. Control. It's like, well, if I'm not in control, I'm out of control. Well, you know what? You're never in control. You might think you are. You can't even control your thoughts. They say, hey, don't think about a pink elephant. Boom, would you flash right into your mind, right? So you have no control. So surrender to control. Take charge of your choices, right? And make the choices that are right for Houston. Right?
I friggin' love that.
Yeah, so life is interesting, and when you start to really go inside and speak your thoughts, this is a cool thing. If you speak your thoughts out loud, it's like a comedy show, right? I'm serious, right? So when you start listening to the thoughts that you're having, really pay attention to those thoughts and start speaking them. It is a comedy show, because your thinking thoughts are not the same as your doing thoughts. As you're speaking, it's so different. I mean, they're at the furthest end of the spectrum. You talk about the pendulum swinging. Oh my goodness, it's absolutely insane. But again, we talk about, well, we're programmed to what? If we talk out loud, that means we're going crazy. Well, that's the lie. If you don't talk out loud, you will go crazy, right? Because you're in this brain chatter. Everything just
yes.
Talk out loud.
And it's repetitive.
It is.
You're only having that one thought that day.
No, every day.
You're having that the next day. Every day it's the same reel.
60% of your thoughts are consistent every day. So become aware. Become aware.
Yes. And the other thing too is we are not our thoughts, where people start believing in their own thoughts and it becomes a reality.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, no, don't do that to yourself.
Well, it is. It's a personality trait, that shows up. So, Amy, we could just go on here forever, right? And I am so delighted that you found it in your heart to return to the show, because your message is always very, very inspiring, and what you're doing and the work and the help that you're giving others. You know, kudos off to you. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
They can find me. The best place to find me is actually on Facebook, believe it or not. It's called Fit and Fierce Over 40. Or you can just find me on my personal page. It's Amy Tsai. And feel free to reach out. I would love to chat with you, right?
Comment below here. It's so
much fun, and it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, Beverly. You are a bright light, and the fact that you've got the universe behind you, I just love it. I just love it.
Well, thank you. I have the world by the tail, as they say, right? That's why it's behind me, you know? Okay, Amy, thank you again so much. It's time to say go out there and what? Be that best you that you can be. Because Amy and I are going to be the best we that we can be. Thank you all for being here, and we're going to see you on another show.